Thanks for tuning in to 101.3 BKMG The Farce, coming to you live from separate places, pre-recorded. Now presenting The Bane and Mickey Show.
What the hell, Gavin? Boy.
I get that a lot. If you couldn't guess it from the title, we're going to be talking about Hellboy, specifically the 2004 version versus the 2019 version.
Yes, yeah. Reboots, franchise, comic books, all the good things.
Yep. Anyway, as we like to start off. Have you seen anything good recently, Kendall?
Yeah, in celebration of comics and superheroes, I watched Shazam.
I love that movie.
Which I had not actually seen when it came out. But yeah, it was really entertaining. It was quite good. I haven't read the comics or anything, and so I think that's probably why I didn't see it when it came out, because it was just like I wasn't as hyped as like you were, for example. But and then I think, when did that come out? Like
2018. Yeah,
honestly, I was probably just busy and didn't get a chance to see it. And then when it came out in DVD, I don't know, I just probably didn't find it. But it was good. It's entertaining. It's kind of like a PG Deadpool in a way. I don't know. In that funny.
I know what you mean.
But like sarcastic. I don't know.
I was also wrong. It was 2019.
2019? Oh, okay. But
Whoops.
Yeah, very entertaining. Got some good laughs. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
I remember I was really excited for it because I knew a little bit about the character and like Zachary Levi. Mm-hmm. And I thought that more people were excited, but like everyone I talked to was like, I think that looks terrible. I'm like, you think it looks terrible?
Yeah, a lot of people. I think a lot of people were like, oh, this looks cheesy and stupid and dumb, but I think you should give it a try. It is kind of more of like a family movie in a sense, in a way. I guess maybe just because it involves around like kids and teenagers, but like, it's funny for adults. I got a great laugh out of it, and I mean the fact that he's a teen, but he's an adult, and so. Kind of, I don't know, you get those adult comedy things. I don't know. It's great. It's fun. Yeah.
I watched this new show on Netflix called The Queen's Gambit with Anya Taylor-Joy in it.
Yeah. I need to watch that, but I haven't yet. I'm finishing Haunting.
It's very good for a show that's about primarily chess. Yes, I never thought I would care that much about a show that involved, in large part, chess.
Chess. What, how far are you in it, or have you, like...
I finished it.
Oh, you finished it? Goddamn.
Well, it was limited, and it was only 7 episodes.
I mean, so that's fair.
I just watched it in, like, 3 days.
Meanwhile, it takes me, like, a whole month to watch 10 episodes.
Yes, but you have...
We're getting there.
A job where you do things.
Sure. I mean, you also have a job.
Yeah, but...
And a cat. And a I don't know.
He mostly just annoys me. Otherwise, I just sit around doing nothing, which is not the best.
But we love him. He's cute.
Free time for TV.
Great. Yeah. Well, I mean, hopefully this month, and by this month I mean November, I'll have a little more time since we just finished our production. So I kind of have like a month and a half. That's a little less. Well, I say less busy, but then at work it's going to get chaotic because holidays, so who knows?
True.
Who knows, but whatever. I'm also planning on trying to spend my free time writing a script rather than fooling around and being dumb, but...
Yes, I also need to do some writing.
We'll see. We'll see how it goes. Anyway, yeah, so let's get into Hellboy.
So, This is one of my favorite movies of all time. I've seen the first one probably at least like 15 times.
Okay.
I remember I watched it when I was like a younger teenager, so like 13, 14-ish. And I've watched it frequently ever since. So,
I don't
you
think
know.
I haven't seen it. I think I've maybe seen it like 2 or 3 times. No, I've seen it more than twice, like 3 or 4 times. Not as many as you, but I've certainly seen it multiple times because it's beautiful and wonderful and very nostalgic. I was trying to remember when I saw it. And I didn't see it when it came out because I would have been 6 and my parents would not have let me see that at 6. But I must have been, it must have been like I don't know, it must have been 2008 or something. I must have been like 8 or 9 or something. But I think it was one of the first comic book movies I saw. Because I was like, oh, I must have seen Iron Man before this, but then I looked up when Iron Man came out, and I was like, maybe not, actually. So, when did X-Men come out?
X-Men was 2000. That one I'm sure of.
Okay. Because
but like this was
another
sort of
of
my
the
gateway.
first ones I saw was comic book movies I saw was X-Men Origins.
Oh, Origins Wolverine. I think that was.
That was
later
2009.
2000s?
So,
2008.
but I do think Hellboy was one of the first ones I saw, introducing me to these comic superhero movies.
I think one of the first ones I saw was like either the original 1989 Batman or Christopher Reeve's Superman.
Oh,
but
fuck.
this was sort of like.
I'm so dumb because I definitely watched Batman from a very young age. But
Well,
whatever.
I feel like...
The new age comic book movies. Because
well,
I watched
just like...
I watched the 1960s Batman.
Yeah.
So much when I was little. So, but I would say the new age comic books, all of the new age comic book movies that have come out 2000s and on.
Well, this was sort of like my introduction into more like less mainstream characters, like the Dark Horse comics. And then also Guillermo del Toro and his whole tapestry of beauty, and Doug Jones and Ron Perlman.
Oh, it's
the whole gang.
It's so good. All of it is just.
It also led to one of my favorite quotes of all time, nacho. Which is why almost every time I watch Hellboy, I make nachos.
Ooh, that's a great. Yeah, that's a great tradition. Now I want nachos, and I want to watch it with nachos.
It's addictive. What are some of your like kind of reactions to it, or what do you like about it?
It's just so beautiful looking. And that's also just something you get with Guillermo del Toro. Like everything that he makes is just so beautiful. But I think the thing that I really like about him is all of his practicals and use of practicals, and of course that comes from these early films, and that's that's how you had to get through a lot of it. But like Pan's Labyrinth is one of my favorite of his, which I think Hellboy has a very similar kind of evil monster side stuff to it in a way. Pan came out after Hellboy, but I don't know. Guillermo del Toro. Also, I wrote on the notes when I rewatched it, I was like, cute baby Hellboy, which little demon Hellboy for like 2 seconds, whatever, is very adorable looking. And yes. I'm just going to say, in the 2019 version, he is not cute looking at all when he is little baby demon. But yeah, I love, I don't know, there's something about, I think just the opening scene that is so iconic. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Like, that's what I remember most when I think about back to the first time I saw this film was the opening moment.
So I looked it up, and sets were Steven Scott, and the makeup guy was, what was his name? It was Matt Rose.
Ooh.
So I wrote it down. So, yeah, the sets and the set pieces were really beautiful. All those practical effects, like, really just kind of add a few layers, and there's some CGI in there. because there kind of had to be.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's some where it's pretty noticeable even now, but it still holds up pretty good.
It does hold up really well.
Noticeable.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just because I'm looking for it, so I notice it more. Mm-hmm. But also, like, overall, I feel like the CGI that they do have holds up really good.
Yeah. Oh, Steven Scott did like Indiana Jones and a couple, James Bond. He also did some older Doctor Who also. Yeah. We love it. Yes. Love it. Yeah.
And there was also, like, when I was rewatching and just noticing, like, some of the attention to detail. Oh, so, like, man. Hellboy has a tail.
Yeah.
And so when he's laying on his bed and he's laying on his back, his feet are up. So he's not, like, crushing his tail.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's something also I was noticing in the remake, which we'll get to more in detail, but there were some practicals in Hellboy's costume and makeup, which you kind of have to. But there were also, I think there were times where, like, his hand was animated, or it looked it. Obviously, his tail is animated. But I felt like a lot more of it was animated, whereas in the 2004 version, it's all practical, and it's beautiful. And I mean, that goes back to, we talked about Mopop, and you can they have the Right Hand of Doom, and it's beautiful and amazing, and it just goes to show how beautiful and pure practicals are.
Also, just, shout out to Doug Jones, who played Abe Sapien.
Oh my gosh.
And how he's just always great and always getting up in those fancy get-ups.
Right. And we're going to talk about it. We have to talk about it. I don't think I'd seen Hellboy since I'd seen Shape of Water. And so when I rewatched it, I was like, hold the phone. Guillermo, what are you doing here? And what is this universe? And then I went into...
it could really easily be.
I kind of fell into a black hole because I was like, I had to look into it. I was like, okay, is this a thing? Has it ever been a thing? And apparently Guillermo del Toro, like, tweeted, he's like, no, it's not a thing. It's not him. Blah, blah, blah. Whatever.
But they look so similar.
But people were like, okay, but when they talk about the origin of Abe Sapien, everyone's like, okay, but clearly this is kind of what happened in Shape of Water. And then there's a whole freaking egg thing, the hard-boiled eggs, rotten eggs, and boiled eggs, and eggs in general. Doug Jones
is both of them.
I think that just is proof right there.
The design is really similar.
The design is, like, the exact same. No, apparently it's been denied. It's not a thing. I'm sorry, but it would be really cool if it was.
But
it would be really cool.
Though?
I feel like Guillermo del Toro was just sitting in his house being like, I fooled them all. But, no.
We get a sequel to Shape of Water, but it's actually just Hellboy 3.
Honestly, or Hellboy Origins. Abe Sapien. No, I think that's just a fun, like, directorial cameo, nostalgic, like, Easter egg, which, because Shape of Water came out in 2016. That's a lie. No, it's not. 2017. 18? So, that's 10, almost 15 years apart. So I think, and how many things did he do before Hellboy?
Most of his stuff was in Spanish, so it was like foreign films.
He had a lot in the...
Hellboy was sort of like the big his big introduction to global kind of success,
filmic success. So I think it's a great little callback, and I love that he was able to bring Doug Jones back for it. But maybe one day we'll get we'll get more information on it, but it's fine.
Well, the other thing about it too is, like, it's a really good Guillermo del Toro movie, so like it is based off the comic, but it also really feels like one of his movies, which is one of the things I really like about it. Which I
Yeah.
feel like the 2019 one is a little lacking in, is
Yeah.
artistic voice.
Speaking of like auteurs and auteurship, um, Hellboy is really like the establishment of his design and look and amazing storytelling. So, yeah.
I also don't feel like they talk about the fact that Liz killed a bunch of kids and Hellboy's a crazy cat lady.
Yeah, yeah, there's some random bits, which it's also like, I feel like Hellboy as a character in a story is also just random in a sense. So, yeah.
I feel like some of the elements are kind of like in general. I feel like it's a really good movie, but you know, like the love triangle thing, the sort of funeral classic early 2000s
And it ends
funeral in
with
the
the whole
rain
like
thing.
lovey
I mean, that part I don't mind as much. The
thing.
love triangle thing that just I don't know. It feels sort of pointless because
Yeah.
like you don't ever really think they're gonna be together, so there's not really that like.
But it's also
I
like,
don't know.
how much is that in there just to also expand the audience?
Right.
And then, I don't know, have you read any of the comics or do you know the comics well?
It's been a little while. From what I remember, though, like the first comic is a lot more like this movie with like Rasputin and everything.
So, like, how much of that kind of love triangle thing is in the comics, or like how much of that is
I think
kind of taken from
I'm
that?
not like I said. It's been a while since I read them, so I don't know that John Myers is a real character.
I don't.
He might be made up.
I don't want to say that's true, but also watch us get a bunch of comic book haters now correcting us. It's fine. Speaking of John Myers, I didn't realize. Well, again, I mean, because it had been probably years since I'd seen it, but I didn't realize it was Rupert Evans, who I was introduced to mainly through Man in the High Castle. I mean, he's been in other things, but that's when I really was like, oh, damn, this guy's really good, and I should look at more of his stuff, but he's aged really well. Like, what the fuck? Considering Hellboy was 2004, which the first time I saw him rewatching it, I was like, damn, he like doesn't look different, which he does look, but then, you know, there are parts where he does look a little younger, obviously, but he's aged really well, so props to him. But
way to go, dude.
Yeah. And then also John Hurt and
John Hurt. And we can maybe transition this into the 2019 one if you want, but the father-son dynamic between John Hurt and Ron Perlman's Hellboy and Professor Broom is a lot better than
it's very
Ian
pure.
McShane. Oh my gosh, I forgot his name. David Harbour. Broom and Hellboy relationship.
Yeah, in this one, in the 2004 one, it's very pure and beautiful. And, I mean, it starts even from that very first moment in the opening scene. And I don't know. I think it's great. It's lovely. And it's a little less... It's very angsty in the remake.
A lot less aggressive.
Very aggressive.
Everything. So... I don't know, do you have any final thoughts on the 2004 one before we sort of deep dive into the 2019 one?
If you haven't seen it,
do it.
I don't know what you're doing with your life. I'm gonna put it on my classics list. If I were a film professor, I would make my students watch it like first thing.
Right.
There's so much to take away from it. Storytelling. Who wrote it?
I think Guillermo co-wrote this one.
Yeah,
Guillermo
co-wrote it with Peter Briggs, and then of course we have the comic books by Mike Mignola. Mignola. I'm terrible at
I think it's Mignola.
So, storytelling. You've got your beautiful production design, and makeup. Stephen Scott and Matt Rose, and just the casting.
Mm-hmm.
It's wonderful. It's got some classic actors, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, it's great. So get on your shit.
Get on it.
And go watch it. So, part 2.
The 2019 version.
Yes. Hellboy 2019.
Hellboy. I was very excited for this movie when it first came out. I think I saw it one of the first weeks it came out, and there was nobody else in the theater.
Oof.
Except for me and Kevin, which was fine. It all worked out for the best. But it was just sort of a meh disappointment.
Mm-hmm. I never saw it. Oh, no, keep going.
As someone who really enjoyed the last one and, read the comics and stuff, it just sort of feels like a big letdown. Mm-hmm. And, with the R rating, I was expecting something a little more Logan or Deadpool where...
Yeah.
Like, they don't... Like, they have the R rating so they can use it to do, like, different things, but they don't just, like... It's not gratuitous blood and gore and fucks all around.
Yeah.
I think the first fuck is within, like... 10 or 12 words.
10, 12 words.
And it's just completely unnecessary.
It is. When I watched it, I was like, okay, they were just throwing it in there to be like, yeah, this is an R-rated movie, we're going to say fuck. And I was like, there was no point to it. And it was also kind of a little throwaway of like, we're trying to be funny, but...
Right. Well, yeah, a lot of the humor didn't super land. But, like, I don't know. And... Even, like, the cast I thought was going to be really good. Like, Ian McShane, great. David Harbour, great.
Which
it's just, I don't know.
Yeah.
David Harbour... he was a good Hellboy.
I will say he did a good job, and it's big shoes to fill. But, indeed, it's... Yeah.
I feel like most of the problems with his Hellboy are not his fault.
Yeah. Like writing it was, or directing or whatever.
Like how they wanted it to be done. I just don't think... Like, I feel like if he had been put in the 2004 version kind of thing, like, he would have done a good job.
Right. Well, I even said with this one, I think one of... It would have been cool, or it would have... Well, no, we'll come back to that when we compare them. But... I didn't see it in the theater. It was also a time I just wasn't seeing a lot of movies. I was busy with a bunch of stuff, and I think I wasn't as excited for it. I think probably just based on the trailer, and I really don't. I mean, well, reboots tire me.
That's fair.
Except for Spider-Man, that doesn't count. I will see every and any Spider-Man movie, but reboots, yeah, it's always like, oh, okay, here we go again. Like, is this really necessary? So I think I just wasn't super hyped about it. But yeah, at least with this one though, it's not quite an origin story. Mm-hmm. They do have a flashback to his origin, and then there's the whole like Arthur's Excalibur.
That was a really weird thing. I don't know how that comes from the comics or not, but
I don't either. And it was this is
I would
weird
hope it doesn't.
As fuck.
It was really weird.
But at least it's not like they don't have to be like, okay, we have to go through the whole origin again, blah blah blah. Mm-hmm. So that was nice. Well,
and I liked that it was a little more original.
Yeah.
And I know you didn't really like the soundtrack, but I liked the soundtrack for it. I mean, I don't know, I just sort of like those. I like when the soundtrack doesn't totally match it a little bit.
Right. It was just...
Where,
I think the first time I didn't like the soundtrack is when they started playing the Spanish version of White Lightning while he's wrestling the guy. No. It's like the second scene.
It was Rock You Like a Hurricane.
Yeah. Rock You Like a Hurricane. And I was like, is this really necessary right now? I think that's when I kind of fell out of it. And then there's also some other weird rock moment, maybe when he's fighting the trolls. I don't know. But I just looked up...
Giant fight.
Yeah, the giant fight. Benjamin Wallfish did a lot of the music, and he's one of my favorite composers, especially in the more modern age. So that was surprising to see, but I don't know. It was fine. It was just like, it kind of felt like they're like, oh, now we got to throw in this cliche like pop song because we got to make it kind of Deadpool-y, I guess, in a way, which didn't work as really. So I think that's really my only thing against the soundtrack.
You know, like after watching the first 20, 25 minutes of blood, gore, and swearing, every other time it comes up, it's less impactful. And so it just kind of takes away from some of the moments, like when they kill Broom or I don't know, any of the other times it happens, really. Well,
yeah, there's really no shock factor to the blood and gore, and which is unfortunate. And it's just kind of there because it can be there, but there's no reason for it to be there, I think. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It sort of has the feel of like one of those, like hard R comedies, like Hot Tub Time Machine or something, where they're just like, we're a fun comedy and we're going to swear a lot and do a bunch of stupid stuff type thing.
Right. But
they're also not trying to be funny.
Yeah, and there's no, this this story and this character has the potential to really cash in the blood and gore and like make heavy use of it and have some shock to it in akin to like Logan or Deadpool. But it doesn't do that, unfortunately. It just kind of throws it. It's just kind of a throwaway. So,
like the fight with the giants. If you want to start talking about that a little bit, would have been a lot better had they not already done so much like blood and gore before that.
Right.
Like, there's a lot of really cool moments where he like spikes the giant's head on a giant tree, or he has the other one hit him, or he stabs his eye. They just don't land as well because we're already kind of just like,
even the throwaway line where he's like, "What have you been eating?" and then he's like, "Oh yeah, I forgot." It's not impacted at all.
Right.
Which it should be, but it's not. He was eating humans, by the way. The giants were.
My biggest complaint, honestly, is like the story structure.
It's so random.
The thing I hate most,
it goes everywhere.
It does.
It's like,
but the biggest thing was like, again during the giant fight when like they stab him and they throw him in the river. We should have just gone right into the giant fight, but then it cuts away to the Blood Queen on the couch.
Yeah, and
it just, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, even just the beginning where I was like, I don't know why, but it made me think of Monty Python. Just the whole Knights of the Round Table, Knights Templar, like, I don't know. It was like, again, I don't know if it's a comic, if it's directly taken from the comics or not, in which case, by all means. But I don't know. It felt very random. But then it was also like, we're gonna talk about King Arthur and his Knights of the Round Table. Also, throw in Nazis for like 10 seconds, and then.
Also, you're descended from King Arthur. Surprise.
Yeah, and then it's like Blood Queen. Not really related to Arthur, but kind of.
But he's also
because he killed you, and then random changeling Boar. Is he Scottish? Can we confirm?
I think he's supposed to be, maybe,
because it's not like full on English, like British.
No,
but
he's either Cockney or Scottish.
Right. Half of the time it sounded Scottish, like very heavily Scottish, and half the time it just sounded Cockney. And so I was like, what? Mm-hmm. But also, why? It's a fucking boar changeling thing.
I don't know. I feel like they gave a lot of importance to his character for him to not do much of anything.
Right. Also, the fact that he's like introduced and then it's like, oh yeah, by the way, he's a changeling, and you have that whole flashback, weird baby moment, making a baby cry with iron, and then it changes into this fucking boar. I
don't know. The whole movie
the
just
story
sort of feels
goes
like
all over
a missed opportunity.
All over the place. Oh, 100% missed opportunity. I agree.
Because like there's a lot of behind the scenes thing, which I feel like is what happens with a lot of these reboots. Like it happened with Fantastic Four. Artemis Fowl. This, I don't know. You just hear about that a lot.
I feel like there was some Batman drama. Which one was it? Nope. I don't know. Anyways, yeah.
So I mean, that's I'm sure
drama.
part of what happened to it, but
it's also like it has a lot to live up to because the 2004 Guillermo del Toro was so. It's been iconic. So well received, and it's so iconic, and big breakthrough for them, and so it's a lot to live up to, and it didn't even really come close. It didn't quite hit
the mark.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing is, like, one thing I think is also, I mean, I think there's some good things about it. Like we kind of touched on, like David Harbour's Hellboy. I think it was cool. I like that it's not really an origin story, and I also like that they didn't try and almost directly remake the old one. Right. And they tried to tell their own story with different characters.
It also has some really interesting design. I love the like Hellions and like the demons that come out of the underworld at the end. The design of them was like really fascinating and interesting. And I'm like, this is something from the comic book. Like, I can see this. I love this. And of course, they're only in there for like 5 minutes. And then again, the Baba Yaga scene was so reminiscent of Guillermo del Toro. I was so captivated by that like 5 minutes because I was like, oh shit, I've been transported to a whole other world, a whole other movie. Can we just keep this for the rest of the film? But unfortunately, we did not. It also was very Pan's Labyrinth, I think, reminiscent with like the character design of Baba Yaga and just the whole feast thing.
The Baba Yaga, not the voice, but the body, was done by this contortionist guy. His name is Troy James.
Yeah.
He was also on The Flash. He played a guy named, what was his name? I don't know.
Who did
Ragdoll, I think, is what it was. But he's like super flexible and bendy, so it's really cool.
Super flexible and bendy.
Getting some practical effects in their giant CGI mess.
Honestly.
I think also too much CGI.
God, I would love to hire a contortionist for frickin'. Like, did you ever watch... Okay, this is so off topic. Did you ever... Oh, Channel Zero. Damn. Did you ever watch the... Oh, yeah, he was... Okay, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. I was going to say. He was also in Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
Who?
Troy James.
Oh, really?
He played the Jangly Man.
Oh, okay.
I was going to say, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark has some really great contortionist work in it. Because of Troy James. So, but, yeah, and then Baba Yaga's voice. Oh my god. Oh wait, is that the video game though? It's done by Emma Tate.
Who's that?
She's done a lot of voice acting. She did... I
didn't realize that Neil Marshall was one of the producers of Lost in Space.
Really?
The new one.
Yeah.
Also, that really weird Thomas Hayden Church cameo where he plays Lobster Johnson.
Yeah, right.
Who is a real character from the comics. It was just weird.
Oh.
I would say the other positive is, I don't know if you remember this story, but originally Daimyo was played by Ed Skrein. But he didn't know when he was cast that it was... I think the character in the comics is... He's either is Asian or is part Asian. So he ended up quitting. And then they cast Daniel Dae Kim.
Yeah. I loved seeing Daniel Dae Kim. I haven't seen him in anything for a while. And, of course, fell in love with his work in Lost and then Hawaii Five-0. But, yeah, I was like, oh, yay. Lovely faces. But also it was weird. I think his accent was a little weird sometimes.
It was a little weird, but, whatever.
But it was fine. But, yeah.
And then we sort of touched on it, but, like, the father-son dynamic, Just doesn't work so
It's a little off. I think it's focused a little too much on the angst, and you were saying there's very teenage Hellboy angsty adolescence in this film, and it very much is played out in their relationship, which kind of ruins the relationship a little bit, and then also makes the moment at the end when we kill off Broom, it's
less
like
impactful because I don't care about him.
It's really not impactful at all. Also because the last moment we see him really, right, is after their fight kind of thing.
And then whatever. Where he just and then he just dumps more exposition. It just dumps so much exposition at you, like all the time.
So much exposition. It's flashbacks and voiceovers, and I'm like, okay, there's a better way to tell this than even like I don't know how much I would have minded if they had just done the Hellboy Nazi origin flashback the same way. Well, but then you also have their whole Arthur flashback at the beginning. I don't know.
Honestly, I think the change they made, because as far as I know, in the original comic, Broom acts more like he does in the 2004 version, where he kind of like just adopts Hellboy. I didn't totally hate the change where they where Broom seems like he's gonna kill Hellboy, or like that's what he's there for.
Right.
But we're then supposed to believe that after that, he actually starts to care about him, which you don't really see
because he's like, and then he's like, you're not the evil guy, you're not an evil demon from hell.
Right, and then we're just supposed to believe him.
Right, and
I don't know.
I don't know. There was also that whole demon, that whole Excalibur, embrace your demonic power thing was like, the first time it was so easy for him to refuse to pick up the sword. And then the second time it was too easy for him to pick up the sword for real and embrace the power. And I was like, okay, figure out your priorities. You either want it or you don't. And there's no struggle for either one, really. But which is controversial, like contradictory, because it's like, okay, you're either a pure soul, which Hellboy does have a very good heart. And in the 2004 one, that comes from Broom. The reason he is not a demon from hell is because Broom raised him proper and right and taught him how to use his power for good. And then, but in this one, it's like, okay, do you have a pure soul? And so it's easier for you to refuse the sword when you see the consequences of it, which is unleashing the underworld, or I don't know. It just, there was no struggle for either one. And I was like, you got to have a struggle for one of them. You can't have one be easy and the other not be hard.
Well, I mean, you see, like, in the 2004 version, like, little moments where Hellboy's, like, trying not to disappoint him. Like, when he, like, hides a cigar behind his back when they first go to the museum.
So pure. But he's also like, great and terrible. He drinks and smokes and like, lights things on fire.
Super bother me, like, in the new one. Like, but you don't really see that they care about each other because all they do is fight. But if Broom had been more like, a little more like John Hurt's character, sort of, and been a little more like, I don't know, not nicer, but just more fatherly, I guess.
It just adds a whole new dynamic to the character and his backstory and his morals, in the 2004 relationship, because you understand where it comes from. Whereas this one, it's just there's no importance really. And so then at the end, also when you have the cliche like, no, holding my father as he dies moment, it's like, really? Was this necessary?
And also, do you really care? Or are you just telling us?
But then somehow there's, obviously there's care, because then he's like, oh, I'm going to take the sword and chop, whatever. Whatever. It's fine. Well, okay. So we've ranted about that one a bit. I think the answer for us
to which one is better?
Obvious.
It is the 2004 one.
Yeah. And after...
But I feel like it's a little more complicated.
It is a little more complicated. And I went through and I was like reading some reviews on the 2019 one just to kind of get the general consensus, which it was a lot of kind of like hit and miss, a lot to live up to, didn't really meet these standards, kind of reviews. But, you know, if someone likes the 2019, whatever, I'm not going to... It's your opinion. But...
Well, I mean, I like it. I don't know. Watching it just sort of feels like I mentioned already, is like just a missed opportunity because it feels like it's there. They just didn't, for whatever reason, whether it was, you know, whatever the reason was, they just didn't quite get there yet.
Right.
Like, ideally, if they'd taken sort of like the design and story elements, and like taking practical effects and sort of mishmashed it with the tone of this new one, I feel like they would have had it right there.
Yeah, like, could have
like,
combined it all.
Taking the conflict, like, if they made it so Broom was going to kill Hellboy initially, there is that conflict there between Broom and Hellboy that he doesn't know about, but he's not just, like, treating like an asshole. Like, Hellboy doesn't treat Broom like an asshole the whole time.
Right. Or, like, did something happen after the original Broom taking him in that, like, that caused Broom to rethink, you know, taking in Hellboy, like, to make him want to kill him or whatever.
Or he just, like, or, like, that's the thing that, like, ignites their conflict, because, like, they kind of get along, but, you know, like, they have the one, like, you know, they don't super get along, but then that's sort of like, well, why do I give a shit about him? He was going to kill me anyway, so whatever.
Yeah.
And then, you know, like, when he's about to die, that's their reconciliation or whatever.
Yeah. It would have... yeah. It's annoying that, like, they decided they have to reboot, which I know sometimes reboots are because of rights and whatnot, and blah, 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 and money and companies and whatever. But it would have been interesting or instead to have brought them back and brought in a part 3, you know, rather than a reboot. Also, since it's a different story.
Right.
Which also would have helped with some of the whatchamacallit, exposition. You know, because if we already have 2 movies, then we don't need exposition for a third one as much. But I also was saying, like, it would have been interesting to see this script or an edit of this script under Guillermo del Toro's direction.
Or maybe if he just had, like, a little more involvement in it, maybe. Did you ever watch the second one?
I don't think I ever did.
Okay.
Yeah.
So originally they wanted to do a third one. The main reason it didn't happen was for money. So I don't know if you remember this, but a few years ago, and like a little before this one was announced or before it came out, Guillermo del Toro was trying, like, one last time kind of to get this one made, and Ron Perlman said he would do it, but it just didn't happen, mostly because I think from what I remember the budget was going to be like $300 million.
Really big, yeah.
Right. To do the story correctly, and this one only cost $50 million before advertising.
Damn.
So all in all, probably like $100 million, which is like a third less.
Yeah.
And it only made $40 million at the box office, I believe.
Oof.
So a big loss, but significantly less compared to...
If they had made $300 million and lost some.
But also, I feel like they probably would have made that money.
Right, especially with Guillermo del Toro and Ron Perlman coming back. You know, it would have brought back everyone who so much loves the first and second ones. So it is a little unfortunate, but do you think they'll make... Well, I don't know, because the way that they, you know, how much loss they had with this one and the way it was received, I can't see them making a sequel. Or they would have to be really, really convincing to get someone to pay for it, you know?
I don't see a sequel to this one happening, unless they do more of a soft reboot sequel type thing,
which is also like
where they keep some of the cast, like they keep like Harbor and maybe Daimyo.
Yeah, that would be cool. Yeah,
and then you throw in like Abe, maybe.
They did tease Abe.
That's the only thing I wish they had was Abe Sapien.
Yeah.
But I also respect
which I did
trying
like the
to do a
tease at
different...
the end, but then it's also like, okay, but we're not going to get
There's no sequel.
It's basically like, it's like the Amazing Spider-Man ending where they tease the Sinister Six, and then we didn't get another movie.
Sidebar.
Unfortunately.
I like those movies.
I do too.
Like if you don't like them, you're dumb. But
I do too.
I feel like people that don't like Andrew Garfield are just stupid. Anyway.
He was, yeah. I love those movies. Also, and then Dane DeHaan in the second one is amazingly cast as Green Goblin.
It was weird how they shoehorned him in, but
yeah,
we're getting a little off topic.
We are. That's another day. We'll bring Jordan back. We'll talk some more Spider-Man. We have lots to go through.
What do you mean?
We'll go through every single comic. This becomes a comic podcast.
Comic cast.
A comic cast. No, back to Hellboy. Yeah, I think, I don't know. A little hit and miss. A little unfortunate. Would have liked to see more and maybe more connection to the first ones, but alas, what can we do? I would love to see more Hellboy movies. I don't want to see another reboot because do we really, why is it necessary to keep rebooting movies that are so beautiful and well done on their own? Like, ugh, why do we have to keep doing this? But
well, at least they tried to tell an original story. They weren't, like I said already.
Yeah.
They weren't trying
it's
to
not
just
a remake, but
Guillermo's Hellboy. They were trying to take the character and do something else.
Which it would be interesting to see, although I don't like a series, like a television series or something. But I
always wanted to make a show. Yeah,
but also I feel like how much can you do? It would almost have to be like one of those extended episode, like hour and a half episode kind of things, like a lot of British TV shows with like 3 to 5 episodes per season. Yeah, because I feel like having 45 minutes of Hellboy is not enough.
Or like a Netflix show.
Or just every episode is a 2-parter. I don't know.
Well, so I had an idea so not like a Hellboy by himself, but do the BPRD as a show.
Oh, that would be really interesting. It would be almost like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Hellboy.
Or like Torchwood.
Mm-hmm. That way you can have some Hellboy.
Yeah, and then you could have...
you don't have to rely on
you could have all the characters you could bring back. Especially if it was connected to this one, you could bring back Damo and bring in Abe and whatnot. Mm-hmm. It would be cool to bring back Rupert Evans. But...
honestly, just wait for Stranger Things to end, and then I'm sure David Harbour will be free.
Right.
To do whatever.
So that gives you enough time to write the script, right, Gavin? Write the script, pitch it, find a network. We got this.
I'll just reboot Hellboy myself.
And then we got to bring on David Harbour. And
oh my gosh, Dave, we were just talking about you. Do you mind if I call you Dave?
Right.
Anyway, Davey.
Anyway, Davy Jones. Davy Crockett. Oh my God, Davy Crockett with David Harbour.
There we go.
Reboot. All right. No one steal our ideas. We had them here first. That counts as rights claimings. So we're going to come find you.
Of our ideas.
And, all right, Gavin, I think you and I need to go work on some shows now. I'm going to go start writing.
Anyway, bye.
No,
bye, podcast.
I think the last thing we haven't really touched on is, which this comes across with like, because we're going to do so many comic book movies, but the whole adapting comic books to the screen. And we touched a little bit on it, I think, with Spider-Verse. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I love the idea of bringing comic books to screen and comic characters to screen, especially like done in a way where it embraces the comics, whether that's in the art style of the comic or creating a comic book visage with like Spider-Verse. But I don't know. I mean, it's kind of that hit and miss in a way. Sometimes it's also we have so many reboots and comic book things are all the rage right now, and MCU like it goes from comic books to now it's a whole other franchise. I don't know.
And I feel like not to take away from like production design and costuming and everything, but I feel like those are the easier parts in terms of adapting comics, just because they're there and they're easy to more or less like take from, comic to screen. And
Right.
make...
You see that with like the X-Men, you get that,
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember which one, but you have that classic black and yellow uniform.
But I feel like you have to find a way to tell a story that feels like grounded, or you have to focus on the story and it's just kind of like happening with these characters type of thing. Like, one of the things that I like about The Boys is that it's not the focus. I mean, it has superheroes in it, but the focus is more about like socio-political efforts and those like corporations and everything there. It's not about the heroes as much. And I also think that's sort of where like DC and Marvel sort of have the corner of the market, is just telling superhero stories. So now you have to find a way to tell good and interesting stories about characters and people
that happen
which
to
is
be
what
in a superhero
that are
world.
superheroes, and make them kind of grounded in a way, but also make them sort of fantastical, which is one of the things that works really well with Daredevil. I don't know if you ever watched that.
Yeah, I love the Daredevil series. And that's a thing, and that goes back into really incorporating the art style of the comics. Daredevil did a really good job with that. It's kind of something you get with like Watchmen. Really incorporates the comic style. And some of the like, I'm trying to think. I don't know. But yeah, you know, I think there's a different, you get two different sides. You get like the franchise MCU, let's make money and build these and have these characters and we love them and they're superheroes, build the universe. And then you get the let's build these characters in this world that came from the comic book and really embrace this style. You get that also with like Batman, Dark Knight and whatnot. And so there's two different sides, and it kind of just depends what you're in for, if it's money or story or beauty.
And I feel like the best adaptations of comic books are the ones that don't try and lift 100% from the book and they're like trying to bring something specific to life. They're taking like the character or the essence of the character and sort of taking their story, doing whatever story they want with like inspirations from it.
Right. You get that base from the comics and you bring it to life. Because also, there's a whole difference between static hand-drawn illustrations to live action
or even just cartoons.
Yeah, but there's a difference which
When you said static, I thought you were about to say there's a difference between like Static Shock and Black Lightning.
No.
There is, but that was about to be a really weird segue.
Well, yeah, I mean...
I feel like... I don't know, do you have any other final musings?
I don't think so. I think we've probably made their ears bleed enough.
Shall we move on to some random topics?
I think it is time for random topics. What is it gonna be today?
What is it gonna be? Hey, hey.
When was the last time you climbed a tree?
That's a great question. That's a great question, listener. Last time I climbed a tree, I was probably a wee sprout and actually had the upper body strength to do so. So it's probably been, many, many years. I would say at least 15.
At least 15. That's fair.
At least.
I was always a tree climber and a monkey. And so even in my adulthood, I have climbed trees. I think the most recent time I climbed a tree, I was half climbing a tree because it was a short tree and I was helping my nanny child climb a tree. So I wasn't really climbing the tree. It was, but it wasn't really climbing because it was like 3 feet off the ground.
It wasn't not climbing.
It wasn't not climbing, but it was also focused more on them climbing than me climbing. But I think the last time I fully climbed a tree that sticks out in mind, because, you know, I could randomly climb a tree and it wouldn't even register it in my brain as a memory. But there was 2 years ago when I took cinematography with Patrick. It was our last day of class, and we brought the drones out again, because when it's the last week of school and you're kind of fooling around, you bring the drones out and you have drone races. But then it was a little too windy, so we had to stop, and I think we ended up just going to the field between, like, the science building lawn, and we were doing random shit. We were doing, like, gymnastics and cartwheels and stuff, and some of us did go climb trees. So,
nice.
Yeah. Climbing trees instead of learning in college is the only way to make your money worth it.
That's true. That is true.
Especially when it's encouraged by your professor.
I mean, someone has to.
Someone has to climb the trees. As long as you're nice to the trees, okay? Be nice to the trees. The trees are great. They're giving us air. They're lovely. They're Mother Nature. They're beautiful. Be nice to them. Be gentle. Don't kick them. Don't scrape off the bark. And don't hurt the animals that use them as homes. That is my PSA. This is now a nature podcast. I think we should stop.
Thanks to everyone for listening to our PSA about why you should be nice to trees.
Go give a tree a hug. Okay, that's your goal.
Hug
for
that
the
tree.
Week. And go watch Hellboy 2004 if you have not.
Do it.
Do it. Do it. Okay. Have a good week, everyone.